everyone, welcome back to Exmo. Something I've heard a lot from Mormons, including myself once upon a time, is something along the lines of, if I stay in the church and do my best, even if it isn't true, what will I have lost? Basically what they mean is even if the church isn't true, their time will be well spent and they won't have any regrets. I used to have similar thoughts until I left and realized how much I would have potentially missed out on. And I'm not talking about things like R-rated movies or coffee or the multitude of other things that Mormons aren't allowed to do. Today we're going to talk about time because I want to make a point to the Mormons saying, what will I have lost? I'm going to try to go over this as quickly as possible. I want this to accurately reflect the life of a person who was born into the church. I'm going to talk about my experiences as a woman in the church mostly, but for men and women, the time is going to be pretty similar. Of course, not everyone is going to be active their whole life, and they're not going to, do everything that they should be doing all the time. So I'm going to try to make this as fair as possible. Basically what I'm saying is I'm going to be very generous. In the end, I'll shut off hours here and there for missing church, missing scripture study, things like that. For Sunday services, it used to be that it was 3 hours a week, but they've just recently changed it to on Sundays you go for 2 hours. But we're going to go with the 3-hour number since it's been that way for so long. 3 hours a week for 52 weeks a year is 156 hours per year. But of course, not everybody makes it to church every week. Sometimes you miss. Let's say you miss church 4 times a year. That's still 144 hours every year for your entire life. Missions. I'm counting every hour that a person is on a mission because since they're on the Lord's time, it seems only fair that we count all of their time as time given to the church. This is 17,520 hours for young men who serve for 2 years, or 13,140 hours for young women who serve for 18 months. Just to be generous, for the final count, I'm going to go with the hours for young women. Senior missions. Many older Mormon couples go on senior missions together. These usually vary from about 1 to 3 years. So for our example, we're going to go with 18 months, which is again 13,140 hours. Scripture study. This is something that every Mormon is supposed to do every day, both individually and as a family. Let's say that you're doing the bare minimum and you're only studying 10 minutes per day. That's 60 hours per year for your entire life. Prayer. Mormons are advised to pray every day when they wake up in the morning. They're advised to pray to bless every meal they eat, and they're advised to pray when they go to sleep at night. If your prayers are quite short, let's say 2 minutes, that's still 60 hours per year for your entire life. General conference. This happens twice per year. There is a women's session that is 90 minutes, a men's priesthood session that is 90 minutes, and 4 general sessions that are 2 hours each. That's 22 hours per year for your entire life. Activity days. This is something that girls ages 8 to 11 would do, and boys have a similar program called Duty to God, but we're going to focus on the girls one because that's what I know more about. They're typically once a week. I don't remember exactly how long they always lasted, but I know it was at least an hour. An hour a week for 3 years is 156 hours, but let's say that you didn't make it every week and round it down to 145 hours. Mutual. This is something the young women and young men would get together to do every week, and for me, it usually lasted at least 2 hours. This would be 104 hours per year for 6 years. The young men and the young women are in from ages 12 to 18. That's 624 hours, but let's say that you didn't make it to all the activities and some of them were shorter, and we'll round it down to 600 hours. Home and visiting teaching, which is now called ministering. If you were both doing your ministering and being ministered to, that would be about an hour and a half each month, which would round out to 18 hours a year, which you would do for your entire life. Seminary. This is something that kids do from freshman year to senior year. It would end up being about 675 hours for the 4 years that you're in, but let's be generous again and give it 665. Girls camp or scouting. I obviously went to girls camp. I know that the boys usually camped more, but again, we're going to go with the girls just to be generous. Usually this was 3 or 4 days a year. We'll say 3 days. So that's 72 hours per year for 6 years. Personally, I went to girls camp every single year and I went an extra year. Pioneer Trek. Another thing that all young men and young women do at least once. It's usually 3 or 4 days. Again, we'll say 3 and go with 72 hours. Leadership meetings. This varies greatly because for the different responsibilities, there's different amounts of time that you're going to be in meetings, and some people are in leadership roles a lot longer than others. To be generous, we're going to say that you're in a leadership role for half of your life after you turn age 12, and you go to a couple of 1-hour meetings every month. That rounds out to just 24 hours per year, every year after you turn age 12. Preparing lessons. Again, this varies a lot, and not everybody's going to have the same experience. But let's say that for the half of the time that you're not in a leadership role, you're in a teaching role. You have a partner teacher who does the lessons half the time too, so that takes some of the load off. You spend an hour or so preparing the lessons every time, so let's say about 26 hours per year for half of your life. Temple rituals. Mormons are encouraged to attend the temple as often as possible after they turn 12, which I actually believe was recently changed to 11 years old. But yeah, they're supposed to attend the temple as often as possible. I used to have a family member who would attend every single week. However, usually people can't go that often. So let's say you're only going once a month. An endowment session is 2 hours long, so let's say about 24 hours a year for your life after you turn age 12. Temple service. Now this varies a lot. Not everyone serves for the same amount of time, and not everyone has the same length of shifts, etc. Some people serve for a long time. I actually found this article on ldsliving.org that talks about it. This lady, before moving to Utah, Sister Freese lived in Arizona. She retired from her full-time job at age 83 and spent the next 10 years serving in the Mesa, Arizona temple. In 2012, she moved to Salt Lake, where she began her service as a 94-year-old ordinance worker in the Ochre Mountain, Utah temple. The article was written because the lady had reached age 100 and was still a temple worker. If you keep track, that's 17 years straight that she was a temple worker. Most people do not serve for that long. But, for example, you serve one 6-hour shift each week for 3 years. That's 936 hours. Young Womanhood Recognition / Scouting. Now I know that they've changed the scouting stuff. It's not the same anymore, but we're going to go with it. I don't know how long any of it takes, so we're going to stay with the Young Women track and hope that it comes out pretty similar as far as time. I read this online about the requirements. You will complete 6 experiences, 3 required and 3 elective, and 1 10-hour project in each of the first 7 Young Women values. For the value of virtue, you will complete 4 required experiences and required project of reading the Book of Mormon. So let's say each experience takes an hour. That's 46 hours for experiences, 70 hours for the projects, plus reading the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon audiobook is about 25 hours, but they read kind of slow, so let's go with 23 hours. That brings us to a total of 139 hours. I still have not counted everything that Mormons do. There are countless other things that they need to be involved in. More things that take time are firesides, which happen several times a year and last a couple hours each. Youth Conference, which lasts about 3 days and happens every year for the kids in the youth programs. Stake Youth Activities, which happen every month or 2 if I remember right. Institute, the college version of Seminary. Studying General Conference talks, which you're encouraged to do even when it's not conference time. Reading extra material like the Ensign or the New Era Church magazines. Service like making meals, doing yard work, offering rides, cleaning the church building, helping members move. Family history, which they encourage everybody to do. Being involved in the church choir, going to ward parties and providing food there. And many, many other things that the members are asked to do. We're going to add some extra hours just for all this unaccounted for time that I'm not even adding in. Many of them are lifetime things. Let's just go ahead and toss in an extra 1,000 hours for all of these things that I haven't counted in. And by the way, that is a low estimation. Make no mistake that I'm just trying to add extra time. I'm not. That is a very low number for all of the other things that we didn't count. This does not take into account the 10% of your income before taxes that you're required to give to the church in order to remain a member in full standing. This does not count the hours that it takes to get ready and go to the church and travel to and from the temple. This is missing so much extra. However, with this low estimation of what the members are expected to participate in, let's say you live to about 75, which is a little bit younger than average. If you spent your life in the Mormon church doing all the things that you were supposed to do, you've given 57,739 hours total, or over 6.5 years. And throughout this process, I've been extremely generous on the amount of time things take and how often you do them, not to mention all the things that I left out. This is lowballing it, using the shorter amounts each time. 6.5 years, not including the time that you're asleep, over 6.5 years. Honestly, it would almost be more worth it to get your 6.5 years in at the beginning and then spend the rest of your life free than be chained down to this so completely for your entire life. But that's just my opinion. Because regardless of how much time it actually takes, Mormons are required to be Mormon and to do all of these things for their entire life. Imagine all the things that you could do with nearly 58,000 hours. So much time that you could spend with your children, your grandchildren, your siblings, your friends, your partner, yourself. Whoever makes you most happy. That 100-year-old lady that served in the temple for 17 years, I can't imagine that she would have rather been in the temple than spending time with her grandkids given the limited amount of time she had left. We have such a short time to be alive. Regardless of what you believe or disbelieve about the afterlife, our time here is fleeting. I completely disagree that if the church isn't true, you haven't lost anything by believing it anyway. You've lost the one thing that is most valuable, the one thing that we cannot choose how much we have, the one thing that you cannot get back: time. But the church convinces people, often using false information, that all of the hours they require are necessary for you to get into heaven. That'll be it for today, you guys. Speaking of necessities to get into heaven, I think my next video will be about how the church leverages eternal families against us in order to get us to obey. By the time you see this video, I should still have a Twitter poll up where you can go and vote yes or no if you have ever had your family leveraged against you. You can also leave a comment on that poll, and I will be choosing some of those to poll and use in the video. You can find the poll by following me on Twitter at Exmo_Lex. You can also follow me on Instagram at Exmo_Lex. You're not going to want to miss that video, so make sure that you subscribe to this channel and ring the bell to get notifications when I post new things. Like, comment, share, and watch some of my other videos to make sure that YouTube doesn't let this get lost. I appreciate your support. Thank you so much for watching. Live your life to the fullest, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!